Imagine losing everything you ever loved, only to become someone's experiment, a tool for their survival. That was Amarachi's reality, until one day she discovered something that would change both their lives forever. But this is not just a story of pain. It's a tale of betrayal, shocking secrets, redemption, and a love that no one saw coming. How did Amarachi go from being used as a cure to becoming someone's only salvation? Find out now. In a small village called Umuna, where the sun rose gently over the hills and the air smelled of fresh earth, there lived a young woman named Amarachi. She was 24 years old, quiet but full of life. Despite the heavy weight she carried every single day, Amarachi had only one mission in this world: to take care of her sick mother. Their small mud house had deep cracks in the walls, and the roof leaked badly when it rained. But it was home. It was all they had. Amarachi woke up before dawn every morning while the village was still asleep to fetch water from the stream that was a 30-minute walk away. Then she would prepare her mother's herbal medicine before heading out to work at the cassava farm, where she earned barely enough to buy food. Her hands were rough and calloused from the soil, and her back ached constantly from bending all day under the hot sun. But she never complained, not once. At least Mama is still breathing. She would whisper to herself every night as she knelt beside her mother's thin mat, praying desperately for one more day, one more chance to see her smile again. The other villagers pitied Amarachi, but no one helped her. They would shake their heads and say that, poor girl, she carries the world on her shoulders, but Amarachi didn't need their pity. She needed a miracle. Meanwhile, in the bustling city of Lagos, where skyscrapers touched the clouds and luxury cars filled the streets, there lived a man named Desmond Okoro. He was 32 years old and owned one of the biggest construction companies in the entire country. People called him the Iron CEO because his face never smiled, his voice never softened, and his heart seemed to be made of stone. Desmond lived alone in a massive mansion with 12 bedrooms, Italian marble floors, golden chandeliers, and a swimming pool that sparkled under the moonlight. But none of it brought him peace. None of it made him happy for the past 8 months. He had been battling a strange and terrifying sickness that no doctor could explain, no matter how many specialists he visited or how much money he spent. The illness remained a mystery. He couldn't sleep more than 2 hours a night. His body felt heavy, like someone was pressing down on his chest, and there was a constant burning pain in his heart that medicine couldn't touch. His personal doctor had run every test imaginable, but the results always came back normal. You're perfectly healthy. Physically, the doctor would say confused, but Desmond knew better. Something was eating him alive from the inside. One evening, after seeing his 5th specialist that month, Desmond sat alone in his enormous office on the 20th floor, staring blankly at the city lights below him. His assistant, a nervous young man named Emeka, knocked softly on the door. "Sir, there's someone here to see you." Desmond didn't look up. "I'm not seeing anyone today, sir. It's a spiritualist. He says he has answers about your condition." Desmond frowned deeply. "I don't believe in that nonsense. Tell him to leave." But Emeka hesitated, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Sir, with all due respect, you've tried everything else. What do you have to lose?" Desmond sighed heavily, rubbing his tired eyes, and waved his hand in frustration. "Fine, let him in. Just get it over with." An old man with pure white hair, a long gray beard, and a wooden walking stick entered the room. Slowly, his movements were careful and deliberate. He looked at Desmond for a very long time, without saying a single word. His eyes seemed to see right through him then. Finally, he spoke in a low, raspy voice. "Your sickness is not of the body, young man. It is of the soul." Desmond laughed bitterly, leaning back in his leather chair. "So what do you suggest I do? Pray? Light some candles." The old man shook his head, slowly his expression serious. No, your healing lies not in medicine or prayers, but in a pure heart you once destroyed. Desmond's face went cold, and his jaw clenched. What are you talking about, old man? I don't have time for riddles, the spiritualist. Turned to leave, then paused at the door, his hand resting on the frame. You will know when you find her, and you must go back to where it all began. Go back to the place where your sin was committed. Only there will you find your cure with those mysterious words. The old man disappeared into the night, leaving Desmond sitting alone, confused, angry, and deeply disturbed. For 3 days, Desmond couldn't stop thinking about what the spiritualist had said. Go back to where it all began. He tossed and turned in his bed, his mind racing through memories he had tried so hard to bury. Then it hit him like a punch to the Gutumuna village 5 years ago. His company had built a factory there, and many locals had worked for him, including a man named Chidi, a hard-working father, who had died in a tragic accident on the construction site. Desmond had paid the family a small settlement to keep them quiet, and then he forgot about it. He moved on with his life, but now the guilt was suffocating him. What if Chidi's family was connected to his cure? What if that pure heart the spiritualist spoke of belonged to someone from that village? He had to find out. A week later, Desmond found himself driving his black Range Rover through rough, dusty roads heading toward Umuna, a village he hadn't visited in years. His driver had refused to come, saying the roads were too bad, so Desmond drove himself, his expensive suit getting wrinkled and his polished shoes covered in dust. As his car pulled into the village around noon, Desmond saw her. Amarachi was walking slowly along the red dirt road, carrying a heavy metal bucket of water on her head with one hand steadying it. Her faded yellow dress clung to her thin frame, and her feet were bare and dusty. But there was something about her, something pure and radiant, that made him stop the car immediately. His heart skipped a beat. "Excuse me," he called out through the open window, his voice sharp and commanding. Amarachi turned around slowly, her dark eyes cautious and guarded. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. Desmond stepped out of the car, his shiny shoes crunching on the gravel. "Do you know a man named Chidi?" Amarachi's entire face changed, her eyes filled with pain, and she carefully set the bucket down on the ground. "He was my father," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Desmond felt something twist sharply in his chest, a pang of guilt. He hadn't expected. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Amarachi crossed her arms over her chest protectively. "My father is dead, sir. There's nothing left to talk about." "I know," Desmond said, "and that's why I'm here." He paused, struggling to find the right words. Then he lied smoothly, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "I want to help your family. I feel terrible about what happened. I'll give you money if you come and stay at my house in Lagos for a few weeks." Amarachi stared at him, her eyes wide with confusion and suspicion. "Stay at your house for what exactly?" Desmond struggled to find a believable excuse, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, despite the cool breeze. "Just trust me. You'll be well taken care of. I promise I'll pay for your mother's treatment, all her medical bills, everything she needs. You'll have food, a comfortable place to sleep, and when you return, I'll make sure your family is set for life." Amarachi looked back at her small, crumbling house where her mother lay on a mat, coughing weakly through the open doorway. She didn't trust this man, not even a little bit. But she was desperate, and desperation makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. "How much money?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling. Desmond named a sum that made her knees go weak. It was more money than she had seen in her entire life. Amarachi closed her eyes tightly and whispered a quick prayer, asking God for guidance and protection. Then she opened her eyes and nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll come, but only for my mother's sake, nothing else." 2 days later, when Amarachi arrived at Desmond's mansion in Lagos, she couldn't believe her eyes. The massive golden gates were taller than the tallest trees in her village. The compound had beautiful fountains, with water that danced in the air, flowers of every color imaginable, and the house itself looked like something from a foreign movie she had seen once. On a neighbor's small television, a stern-looking maid named Ngozi led her through a side entrance, not the main door that guests use. "This is where you'll stay," Ngozi said coldly, opening the door to a small plain room at the back of the house near the kitchen. "Don't touch anything. You're not supposed to touch, and don't go wandering around the house. You hear me?" Amarachi nodded, quietly clutching her small bag tightly. "Yes, Ma," she whispered. She didn't know why she was really here, or what Desmond truly wanted from her, but she felt deeply uneasy, like something was very wrong. That evening, Desmond's fiancée Blessing arrived. In her bright red sports car, she was a tall, stunningly beautiful woman with long Brazilian hair, sharp cat-like eyes, and an even sharper tongue. She wore a tight designer dress that probably cost more than Amarachi's entire village. She strutted into the house like she owned it, and immediately spotted Amarachi standing awkwardly in the corner of the living room. "Who is this dirty thing?" Blessing asked loudly, pointing at Amarachi like she was an insect. Desmond barely looked up from his laptop. "She's here to help with something. It's temporary." Blessing threw her head back and laughed mockingly. "Help with what exactly? Cleaning toilets, she looks like. She just crawled out of the bush." Amarachi lowered her head, her cheeks burning with shame, but she said nothing. Her heart pounded with hurt and anger, but she swallowed it down. Over the next few days, Amarachi's life became a strange and confusing pattern of quiet suffering and bizarre requests. Desmond would suddenly call her into his large study at random hours and just sit there in his leather chair staring at her, intensely, without saying a word. Sometimes he would ask her in a soft, almost desperate voice to pray for him. Other times he would tell her to simply stay in the room while he closed his eyes and rested his head back, as if her mere presence brought him some kind of peace. She didn't understand any of it, but she obeyed silently because of the money and because of her mother. Blessing, on the other hand, made Amarachi's life a living nightmare. Every single day she found new ways to humiliate her. "You think you're special, don't you?" Blessing hissed viciously one afternoon, cornering Amarachi in the narrow hallway near the kitchen. Her perfume was overwhelming, and her eyes were filled with pure hatred. "Let me tell you something. You're nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. Just a poor, dirty village girl. He's using you for whatever weird, twisted thing he's doing. And when he's done with you, you'll be thrown out into the street like garbage." Amarachi bit her lip hard, fighting desperately to hold back tears that threatened to spill. "I'm not trying to take anything from you, Ma. I promise I'm just here because of my mother. I don't want any trouble." Blessing leaned in close, her breath hot on Amarachi's face. "Good then. Stay in your place and keep your eyes down." One night around 11 p.m., Amarachi was in the quiet kitchen warming some leftover food on the stove when Desmond walked in. Unexpectedly, his face looked exhausted and pale. His shoulders were slumped forward like he was carrying an invisible weight. "Amarachi," he said quietly, his voice hoarse. She turned around quickly, startled. "Yes, sir." Her heart raced. "Do you believe in healing?" he asked suddenly, sitting down heavily at the small kitchen table. Amarachi blinked, confused by the strange question. "I believe God can heal anyone, sir. Why do you ask?" Desmond ran his hands through his hair, looking older than his years. What if the sickness is not in the body? What if it's something much deeper, something in the soul? Amarachi slowly walked closer and carefully sat down across from him, her hands folded in her lap. "Then you have to heal the heart first, sir," she said softly. "Whatever is hurting you inside, whatever guilt or pain you're carrying, it's eating you alive slowly." Desmond stared at her, his red eyes glistening in the dim kitchen light. "Have you ever hated someone so much that it made you physically sick?" Amarachi thought of her father's death and the years of suffering that followed. "Yes, sir," she admitted honestly. "I hated you. When I first saw you, I hated you for what happened to my father, for the pain my family went through." Desmond looked up shocked, his mouth slightly open. But then Amarachi continued, her voice gentle but firm. "I realize that hate only makes the pain worse. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So I chose to forgive even when it hurt, even when every part of me didn't want to." Desmond's voice cracked, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. "I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to forgive myself." Amarachi reached out slowly and gently placed her small rough hand on top of his. "Then let me help you, sir," she whispered. "Not because you're paying me, but because no one should carry that much pain alone. No one." For the first time in many years, Desmond felt the thick walls around his heart beginning to crack. Weeks passed slowly, and something truly strange and miraculous began to happen. Desmond's mysterious health started improving dramatically. The endless sleepless nights became fewer and fewer. The constant pain in his chest gradually faded away, and he found himself actually laughing, genuinely laughing, at small things Amarachi would say, or do. The household staff noticed the change, immediately whispering among themselves. The doctors who examined him were completely baffled, calling it a medical mystery, and Blessing grew increasingly suspicious and angry one evening. Blessing stormed into Desmond's study, unannounced, slamming the door so hard it shook the walls. "What is really going on between you and that village girl?" she demanded, her voice shaking with rage. Desmond looked up from his papers calmly, his face expressionless. "Nothing that concerns you, Blessing. She's nobody." Blessing slammed her manicured hand down hard on his expensive desk. "Making everything jump, don't you? Dare lie to me, Desmond. I'm not blind. I see the way you look at her like she's something precious." Desmond stood up slowly, his voice deadly calm. "Blessing, I think we need to have a serious talk about us, about our future. There is no us anymore, is there?" Blessing's eyes instantly filled with furious tears, her hands trembling. "You're choosing her. Aren't you a dirty paw? Nobody over me." Desmond didn't answer, and that heavy silence said absolutely everything. Blessing grabbed her designer purse and stormed toward the door. "You'll regret this." She spat venomously before slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. "You'll come crawling back." Later that same night around midnight, Desmond went outside to find Amarachi. She was sitting alone on the back steps under the bright stars, her hands folded in prayer, her lips moving silently. "Amarachi?" He called out softly, trying not to startle her. She looked up and gave him that pure, gentle smile that had somehow mysteriously healed his broken soul. "Yes, sir, please sit with me. The night is beautiful." He sat down beside her on the cool concrete, and for a very long time neither of them spoke. They just listened to the crickets and watched the stars twinkle. Then Desmond finally broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you the truth about why you're really here." The real reason Amarachi turned to face him, her eyes calm and knowing. "I already know, sir. You needed healing. And somehow, by God's grace, he used me to bring it to you." "Desmond," shook his head, tears forming in his eyes. "It's so much more than that." He paused, his voice breaking. "I'm ashamed to admit this, but I thought I could use you like medicine, like a pill. Take what I needed from you and then move on with my life, but instead something unexpected happened. You changed me completely. Amarachi, you reminded me what it feels like to be truly human to feel." Again, tears slowly rolled down Amarachi's cheeks. "What exactly are you saying?" Sir Desmond's voice cracked. "I'm saying I was so wrong, so terribly wrong. I brought you here for purely selfish reasons, but you gave me something I didn't deserve, something I could never earn, grace. Unconditional kindness and love. Real love." Amarachi's heart raced so fast, she thought it might burst out of her chest. "Love," she whispered. Desmond looked deep into her eyes. "Yes, love, I honestly don't know exactly when it happened, but somewhere between your faithful prayers and your beautiful smile, I stopped seeing you as a cure and started seeing you as my salvation, the only thing that truly matters." Amarachi stood up suddenly, her whole body shaking. "Sir, you don't mean that. You can't mean that. I'm just a poor, uneducated girl from a forgotten village. You're a billionaire, CEO. This can't be real. It's impossible." Desmond stood too desperately, reaching for her hand. "It's the most real thing I've ever felt in my entire life." Amarachi pulled her hand away, sharply, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this. I just can't. I don't belong in your world. I never will." She turned and ran inside, her heart shattered, leaving Desmond standing completely alone under the stars, his own heart heavier than it had ever been. The next morning, just as the sun was rising, Amarachi quietly packed her small worn bag with trembling hands. Her mother's medical treatment had been fully paid for, and she had managed to save enough money to start fresh, somewhere new, anywhere. But here it was time to leave. She had to go before she fell even deeper into something that could never truly be. She couldn't watch herself break. She left a simple handwritten note on the kitchen table and silently walked out of the mansion. As the golden sun rose, painting the sky orange and pink, when Desmond woke up an hour later and found the note on his nightstand where Emika had placed it, his entire world collapsed into pieces. The words were simple and devastating. "Thank you for everything you've done for my family. Sir, I will never forget your kindness and generosity. But I don't belong in your world. I never did. May God continue to heal you and bless you. Always. Amarachi." He crumpled the paper tightly in his fist and sank to the cold floor, his body shaking with sobs. He had finally found something real, something pure, and he had destroyed it with his pride. Days passed slowly and painfully, and Desmond desperately tried to go back to his old life. But the sickness returned with a vengeance worse than ever. Before the sharp pain in his chest came back even stronger, the sleepless nights returned, and this time no doctor, spiritualist, or medicine could help him at all. His assistant Emeka found him collapsed unconscious on his office floor one evening and rushed him to the hospital in a panic. "Sir, you need complete rest," the doctor said firmly, adjusting his glasses, "but you also need to deal with whatever is breaking your heart, because medicine simply cannot fix that kind of pain." Desmond lay in the sterile white hospital bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, his mind racing, and suddenly, like lightning, everything became crystal clear. He had been healed not by Amarachi's physical presence, but by her unconditional love, her pure heart. And when he pushed her away because of his stupid pride and fear of what people would say, he lost the only thing that had ever made him feel whole and alive. "I have to find her," he whispered hoarsely. "I have to." Desmond immediately discharged himself from the hospital against the doctor's strong advice and drove straight back to Umuna village. His hands were shaking violently on the steering wheel, and his body was weak, but he absolutely didn't care nothing else mattered when he finally arrived in the village. He asked several people where Amarachi was, and eventually someone pointed him toward a small school compound at the very edge of the village near the forest. There she was sitting peacefully, under a large mango tree surrounded by at least 15 young children, teaching them how to read from old donated books. She had used the money he gave her to start a small free school for orphans and poor children who couldn't afford education. Desmond stood at a distance just watching her, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. She looked so peaceful, so full of purpose. Then, slowly gathering all his courage, he walked toward her. The children noticed him first and stopped playing, their eyes wide with curiosity. Amarachi looked up and her eyes widened in complete shock. "Desmond," she whispered, standing up slowly. What are you doing here?" He stopped just a few feet away from her, his voice barely audible and shaking. "I came all this way to tell you the truth, the whole truth." Amarachi folded her arms defensively. "What truth? That I was just your experiment, your test." Desmond shook his head, tears already filling his tired eyes. "Know that you were never just my cure, Amarachi. You were and still are my salvation, the reason I'm still alive." The children watched in complete silence as Desmond slowly dropped to his knees, right there in the dirt, his expensive suit getting ruined. "I was a broken man, so full of guilt and anger and bitterness, and I foolishly thought I could fix myself by using you like some kind of tool, but instead you showed me something I had forgotten. What it truly means to love without any conditions, to forgive without keeping count, to give without expecting anything in return." Amarachi's lips trembled and tears began streaming down her face. "You hurt me so badly, Desmond. I gave you my heart and you threw it away." "I know," he said, his voice completely broken. "And I'm so sorry. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't, but I'm here now. Not as a rich man or a powerful CEO. I'm here as someone who finally understands that the greatest wealth in this life is not money or power. It's a heart that knows how to truly love." Amarachi wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked at him for a very long moment. Then she whispered, "Do you really mean it with absolutely everything in me?" Desmond replied, his voice firm. "I don't want your money or your big mansion," she said softly. "I just want you, the real you." Slowly, with trembling hands, Amarachi reached out and helped him to his feet. "Then you have to prove it," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "Love is not just beautiful words. Desmond, it's action, it's sacrifice, it's choosing someone every single day." Desmond nodded vigorously. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you. I promise." Months later, Desmond made a shocking decision that left everyone in Lagos speechless. He sold most of his businesses, keeping only what was necessary, and moved permanently to Umuna village. He built a beautiful modern clinic for Amarachi's mother and other sick villagers. He funded and expanded the school. Amarachi had started adding new classrooms, a library, and a playground together. They worked side by side every single day, teaching children, helping struggling families, and building a life rooted not in wealth or status, but in genuine purpose and love. The village elders blessed their union, and they had a simple, beautiful wedding under the same mango tree, where Desmond had knelt one evening, months after their wedding, as they sat together on their small veranda watching the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Amarachi rested her head gently on Desmond's shoulder. "You know what's really funny?" she said softly, a small smile on her lips. "What, my love?" Desmond asked. "Playing with her fingers, I thought I was brought into your life to save you, to be your cure. But the truth is, you saved me too. You gave me a purpose." Desmond kissed the top of her head tenderly. "We saved each other. That's what real love does." There, love became a story told across the entire region for years to come. A powerful reminder that healing doesn't always come from medicine or money or status. Sometimes it comes from a pure heart that refuses to give up on love, even when everything seems hopeless. This story teaches us that true healing begins when we stop using people as tools and start loving them as they are. It reminds us that no matter how rich or powerful or successful we become, it's the simplest acts of kindness, compassion, and forgiveness that carry the greatest power in this world. Love is not about what we can take from others. It's about what we're willing to give even when it costs us absolutely everything, even our pride, to my amazing audience. What did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you if you enjoyed the story. Please give it a thumbs up to let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss the next interesting upload. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next story.